Okay. So, welcome to Sunday UK. It's what, about 11 in the morning for DJ. He's in the States and it's 4 a.m. there and it's 4 p.m. here. And so we have a question, and the question is about fear and personality view because they're very, very closely wrapped up together. Um, And the first thing that we can talk about is the depth of the fear, that it goes right down to the bottom, that in fact, the primary instinct that we have is the instinct of self preservation. And so that delusion that there is a self that needs to be preserved, and in fact, the guys who coined that term should have should have said organism protection mechanism rather than self protection mechanism. So the guys who even discovered it didn't quite understand the situation because they called it a self preservation instinct. So the next way we can talk about it or look at it is in the sense of a newborn babe, or actually the birthing process. Being born is pretty traumatic. Everybody goes through a great deal of trauma. Mom does, everybody in the room does, and the birthing process is a trauma, especially for the baby. And so we start out in gross fear. That in fact the joke is that there I was in my hot tub. It was warm and cushy, and I had candlelight ceremonies and music playing. And all of a sudden, the earthquake happens. The water dropped out. The bottom fell out of it. And the next thing I know, Dr. Young is holding me up by the heels, beating my ass. Well, I let out a yell so loud, I didn't even stop yelling till I was about 35. Okay, and that happens with almost everybody. We let out a yell and we don't stop yelling for maybe the rest of our lives. We keep yelling because of that birth trauma and its aftermath. So we start off in fear. We start off as victims. When we are born, we can't do anything for ourselves except cry. Why do babies, young, tender baby infants, why do they cry? They're not satisfied, that's for sure. They feel unsafe, unsecure, hunger. And not only that, but for a tender infant, that's all we've got is feelings. And those feelings are intense. That's why we yell the way that we do, is we let out a great big yell about how bad things are. We start off in a really bad situation. It's called birth. I highly do not recommend it. If you have a choice, don't get born. But if you do get born, we got to kind of make the best of it. And the best of it is to get over that initial birth trauma. And most of us don't. So little kids then, we continue living our lives in danger. Okay? The toddler falls over. But also something happens quite marvelous at about 15 to 18 months, and that is the baby becomes curious. We want to explore that, in fact, the danger gets changed into an exploration. And that many people then will teach that child that wants to explore and get into everything. We give him a bunch of rules about it and bring the danger back. Oh, you're not supposed to play with that. Oh, this is dangerous. So instead of creating a safe environment for the baby, what we do instead is try to teach the baby to avoid the dangers. And so we stay in a state of danger in childhood. Even when we're being nurtured, age of 18 months, 20 months, that kind of time is when the baby comes to understand that he is kind of different. He used to, I mean, when we were a tender infant in mommy's arms, all we could tell was, this is my tit, this is it. But by the time that we're walking around, we begin to make a distinction between, oh, that's mommy and this is me. And this is where the word comes in. The magic word of every baby is the word no. And it's called the terrible twos. We become a little tyrant because we've learned to be ourselves. Okay, so now when we get into that situation, the parents will still nurture us, but the parents who really don't know what they're doing will start to punish the little kid for him saying no and being separate rather than being in a celebration of it. We want to slap the kid around, bringing back the danger. But then when the kid is about 5 or 6 years old, that's when it really starts. It's called school. And every kid goes to school afraid. They're in trepidation. So one of the parents, here's the story. One of the parents say, oh, well, this kid is afraid to go to school. Let me help him. I'll drive him to school. That he doesn't have to take the transportation or ride with the neighbor. I'll let him feel safe until I get to the school. And then I'll let him out of the car. But now the kid wants me to go into the classroom. So I'll take the kid into the classroom so that he can feel safe in the classroom. And now the kid wants me to stay in the classroom so that he can feel safe and secure. So we've actually then taught the child that being around the parent is what's going to help you from being terrified. Well, that brings us into a state of dependency. That in fact, I can't manage my own fear. I've got to have mommy to take care of me and nurture me. While at the same time, mommy has changed too. She's no longer being totally nurturing. She says, no, you go sit down and you do your homework. You sit in this class. I don't care about your fear. It's been too much. And so now the kid is terrified. And we grow up terrified. I mean, think about it when you were a little kid. We're talking about 5, 6 years old. Do you remember how we played, but then there was a whole lot of stuff we didn't like. We didn't want this and we didn't want that, and we lost this friend and we have to go to that school and all of this kind of stuff. And so at the age of 5, the whole society has changed from a nurturing society for the little kid into a critical society. And the kid is made to perform, and the kid is afraid. Okay, so I'm spending quite a lot of time to point out that fear is the primary motivating factor that we live by as we grow up. That everything we do the homework because we're afraid of the repercussions. We don't do it because we like doing the homework. We do it because we're afraid if we don't, something bad will happen. So look at that for your motivations. Recognize how much time you spend doing things in order to avoid the feeling of fear. That we still have that primary feeling. The primary feeling that all of us have is the feeling of fear because we're ignorant. We don't like things because we're afraid of them. We don't, in fact, that's the whole point is that anything that's unknown might be dangerous. You probably heard the expression fear of the unknown. There's also the political statement of better the devil you know than the devil you don't. Okay? That means that we vote out of fear. Better to vote for the devil you know than the devil that you don't. So, if we live our lives like that, then we get accustomed to feeling that way, and we don't recognize that we're motivated by fear. And yet, that the things that make us afraid and the things that we use in that regard helps define who we are. What we're afraid of defines who we are. So kids who are afraid of being able to play the piano wind up being not musicians. The kids who are excited and interested in playing music, they wind up perhaps being musicians. So our fears limit us in many, many different ways. which means that it puts us in a box. And we put a name on that box called me. And, and so now fast forward into the present moment, recognizing that we have been motivated out of fear for almost everything that we did, and that has defined us as to who we are. So now we've come to the Dhamma, and the Dhamma is talking about you are not who you think you are, because who you defined yourself is based upon what you were afraid of. And when you start recognizing that, wait a minute, I don't have to feel afraid, then in fact we can start working on that. That dukkha is actually afraid. And one of the places that we're afraid a lot is when we don't know something, because what we don't know might be dangerous. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is really dangerous. And so we feel dangerous. We have to know. We get into that feeling of, oh, I've got to know this and I've got to know that. And so we get greedy for information. That's what helps define us is what we do and what we know. And what we know was based upon fear. So when we find the Dhamma, we begin to recognize, oh, I have in fact been motivated by this fear, and that's what has defined who I am. But now I begin to see that I have a choice. And when you have a choice, then that means that who you are, that personality, is not fixed, that you can change it. And yet all the religions and all of the other places try to teach that you can't change. In fact, it's a major part of the Christian teaching that you need Jesus. Who are you to be good? Only God is good. You can't do this on your own. You're broken. There's original sin and all of that kind of stuff, you know. All right, so if that sin was original, then that means then that you need to go back to the origin to get it fixed, rather than recognizing that, oh no, it's not broken. Just what's going on is that I don't like it because I'm afraid of it. And when we investigate and do a thorough investigation of what's going on, we recognize that, oh, things are not really all of that dangerous after all. That it's a residual fear that happened in childhood. We became afraid of bullies. And right now, we have no bullies. But if I mention the word bully, then you'll remember the bully, you'll see his image, and then you'll begin to feel the way that you felt when you were around that bully. So we revisit our old experiences and feel that way. So the right thing to do is to stop dealing with the bullies that we had in high school, because that was a long time ago. We don't have to remember what made us afraid. That when people have an automobile accident, which is a terrifying situation, dangerous, they go to the hospital, we're sick and all of that, but we keep reminding ourselves about that automobile accident rather than just forgetting about it. If we just forget about that automobile accident, then that's almost the same as it didn't happen. It never happened, and I don't have to deal with all of that fear. So it's our memories now that bring up the fear in adulthood. As children, we were actually in danger. We needed other people to take care of us. Now that you're a big dude, you can recognize that you can actually handle your own life. You're expected to do that, except that inside we still feel like we're inadequate, that we're not up to the task. We feel afraid. And so in Anapanasati, we actually have to start practicing feeling safe. We have to start looking at it from a safety perspective. But this is one of the reasons why the Buddha talks about go to an empty hut, go to the forest, go to and sit under a tree, get away from the world, get away from everybody, so that you can create a safe, real safe environment for the body. And then we can start having thoughts about feeling safe, feeling secure, and we can begin to talk ourselves into feeling safe and secure. Now, you can't talk yourself into feeling safe and secure while you've got a gun pointed at you, or you're on a boat, or you're out in sitting in the middle of the freeway. No, we actually have to get ourselves into a real situation of feeling safe and secure. So a beginning meditator doesn't go to the police station to meditate. He goes to a big sanctuary, an empty hall, something where there's no one around, so that we can begin to feel safe, because the reality is that we are safe. We still don't feel it yet. And so this is where the right thought and right speech comes into play. By gladdening the mind, we actually start talking to ourselves about we actually are safe now. We can feel safe. We can feel secure. We can feel comfortable. Why do we feel comfortable? Is because the body actually is comfortable, and we are thinking about being comfortable rather than thinking about all the work that we've got to do. That in fact, here's something that I learned about myself long time ago, back in the 1970s, is that every Sunday evening I would have anxiety. And I was actually studying in psychology, and that's when I began to discover that Sunday evening was my time of the week to get all uptight. And I traced it down to a factor of three things. One is that I hadn't done my homework yet. And Sunday night, well, and they always piled up a lot of homework on the weekend, and I hadn't done my homework yet. And so Sunday evening comes around, and I'm in danger. The next thing is that the number one thing that I dislike most doing, that my mother required that I do, was to go to church on Sunday evenings. You know, the Baptist is not enough to go Sunday morning. You just go all day. You take a lunch break that might last 4 hours, but then you go back to church. And I didn't like to go to church on Sunday evening. It was the worst ceremony. It was the worst sermon. I think that, in fact, the Baptist church is full of people on Sunday evening who do not want to be there. It's an obligation. And you've heard the story about every time that the church doors open, my family was there. You've heard that story? Guess what? My mom had the keys to the church. So when that door opens, she's the one who's opening it, and I'm the first one into that church. Okay, so that was the Sunday evening. Now, the next part of it, the three stools, the third one is that was when the best television was on. The Smothers Brothers, Laugh In, the best jokes. That was when Sunday evening was the best television. And so here I am in a three-way split. I want to watch television. I can't watch television because we didn't even have VCR then. I got to go to church. And so I would whine and whimper and do anything and everything I could out of going to church so that I could watch the television. And when I'm watching television, I'm still worried I haven't done my homework yet. And this carried for years. And I would get uptight on Sunday evenings. And when I began to figure it out, what was going on, I would tell myself, you don't have any homework. There's nothing to do. You don't have to go to church. And the television, those programs don't exist anymore. That was 10 years ago. Those songs are gone. And so I would give myself some wholesome thoughts and bring myself out of feeling terrified on Sunday evenings. But I had to catch that. And I can tell you, as far as I know, from the time I was about 14 until the time that I was about 27, every Sunday evening, I had a panic attack. And I didn't even know why. But then when I figured it out, guess what? I could manage those panic attacks. And after a while, no more panic attacks because I could handle it. So This is the way that we can do that for almost anything, to begin to recognize when you feel afraid so that you can talk to yourself into the fact that, well, there's nothing really to be afraid of. An example of that is the boss is walking down the hall. And a lot of people get terrified when the boss is walking down the hall. Oh, he's coming to me. Oh, he's going to fire me. Oh, I haven't done my work yet. And so everybody gets busy and they clean their desk while the boss is walking down the hall. Right? That's what happens. But when you have the boss as your best friend, then you're happy to see him walking down the hall. So the question is, what kind of attitude do we have about the boss? Are we afraid of him? Is he the boss? Or he is merely the guy who has that title, but in fact, he's just a good friend, and there's no reason to be afraid of him. Now, that's another one we have to actually practice, because most people are actually afraid of their bosses. They were taught to do that, just like we were in school. We were taught to be afraid of the teachers. You got to do what you're told to do. You can't sass the teachers, etc., like that. So we need to get away from it all, to get into seclusion, so that we can begin to see that that anxiety is sometimes there. That in fact, that's one of the things that students will talk about a lot, is that, oh, I sit in meditation and all of a sudden I feel tense and uptight. And so the question that I would ask is that a new feeling, brand new because you're meditating yourself into being anxious and uptight, or is this an old feeling? And everybody mentions, oh yes, this is old. This is something that I've experienced before. And so now we have to recognize that we have it right now because we have created it right now. That we've done a repeat. This is an encore. This is not the real performance. That whatever made us uptight happened years ago. And so we can actually then talk ourselves into, right now, I am safe. Right now, I am secure. Right now, there is no place to go and everything is easy going. This is actually now the practice of Anapanasati, is to find a place where the body is safe so that we can talk ourselves into feeling safe by having safe thoughts. By doing that, we are actually changing our personality in that present moment, from being the one who is uptight and anxious into the one who is, oh, I feel so good and comfortable. I've made that change. The personality can be changed. Another way of talking about it, and in fact, my favorite way of talking about it, is you're not who you think you are. You're a moving target. Anytime you pin it down and you think you know who you are, guess what? You just changed, and you're not who you used to be. So begin to think of yourself as a moving target, because then you can decide and make a choice and have control over which way you move. Because everything is in flux. Everything is, the Buddha talks about it, anicca. Anicca vata sankaro patavaya domino. Everything is in flux. And when we are in flux ignorantly, then the old habits tend to rule. But when we are wise and watching what's going on, we have a choice. And so the more often that we have a choice means the more often we can remember that we've got a choice. This is sati, is to wake up into the present moment, that whatever thoughts that we were having were old thoughts and we weren't paying attention. But now I can wake up and recognize, oh, those thoughts are unwholesome. That keeps that tension, that anxiety, and that fear going. Thoughts of work to do, thoughts of emails to write, thoughts of going someplace, thoughts of going shopping, thoughts of what you need to do, all has tension and anxiety and fear based. And so you now are saying, I don't have any place to go. I've got nothing to do. I can sit here and just enjoy having nothing to do. And so we begin to actually feel safe. We don't have to do anything to be going from the feeling of unsafe to safe. That's in fact one of the big mistakes. That's the biggest ignorance of all, is to say that, oh, I feel insecure and unsafe. That means I've got to go do something in order to feel safe and secure. The answer is no, we don't have to do anything. We don't have to go write an email. We don't have to go shopping. We don't have to go apologize to the boss or anything like that. What we can do instead is just sit here and say everything is okay right now. Let's feel safe. Let's practice feeling safe. Let's practice feeling secure. Now, when the Buddha has a sutta about it, uh, because he was already, by the time that this sutta was there, he was already quite skilled with this. He was been a meditator and all of that kind of stuff. And so the way that he practiced was also he was at Bodh Gaya. Now, Bodh Gaya is almost a city now. When I was there in the 1980s, it was a village, but there was a lot of people around. In fact, there was one guy, a Hindu, that just kept his record player, the bullhorn, playing some Hindi music just to make himself feel good because he was a Hindu there in a Buddhist city in India, right? And so he was making trouble. But the point about the Bodh Gaya is that in the time of the Buddha, it was a swampy place. It was a holy place. It was a sacred, dangerous, with swamp gas and fog and all of that kind of stuff. And so the Buddha chose that place for one reason, and that was that it was completely secluded. Nobody's going to go there except the animals that are already there. And so it was a spooky place, and he would have to deal with his fear. How did he deal with his fear? Is by saying to himself, I'm okay right now. I'm just going to stand here and let that fear subside. The fear will go away. There is nothing to be afraid of other than my own imagination. But in fact, I set it up in our little conversation about how dangerous it was, because this is how the Buddha understood it to be a dangerous place until he actually experienced it and stood there and dealt with his fear directly until the fear subsided and the environment didn't change at all. The only change that was made was within his own mind. And so he goes from feeling afraid of being in this dangerous situation into feeling safe and secure. And so for the beginners, we don't go seek out really dangerous places to deal with our fear. We're going to have fear even in our safe places. So let's go find a really safe place and practice feeling safe. Like I said, the Buddha was pretty advanced. And so he went to really dangerous places to feel safe. But us, we need to do it in safe places to start feeling safe.
So, would you recommend when you feel ready for it to go for the places you feel unsafe to seek that out
Well,
actively?
maybe not so much so. Rather, expect that wherever you go, you may encounter danger in that place. You don't have to go seek out the danger, but you just live your life knowing that if any dangerous situation occurs, I can handle it. Okay, that we may not need to go to that particular gym of the scary place of Bodh Gaya. Um, but one of the things that I would say that is common is that when a place becomes spooky, and it does in Thailand. I mean, people get imaginations and all kinds of stuff. But you can imagine in the West they would have something like a haunted house. Okay, so can you visit the haunted house and to manage your fear? Can you go to the haunted house and not feel afraid? Well, let's back up a little easier. How about can you watch a movie about a girl going down the hall of a haunted house while they're playing haunted music? Can you handle that and not get afraid? Or in that famous movie, The Shining, where Jack dies out in the snow and then the corpse of Jack comes in with an axe to beat down the door that his wife is in the bedroom. Can you watch that movie and not become afraid? So the reality is that we're just sitting at home watching a movie. The reality is that we are in a cinema watching a movie. The reality is that we're not in that bathroom with the wife having the axe murderer chop the door down right in front of us with playing that scary music. Okay, you don't have to go into the dangerous situations. There are artificial enough dangers like movies or things like that that you can test yourself. But the way that you don't want to go test yourself now because you already know that you can't handle that fear. So if you can go and sit down and learn to manage your fear to feel safe and comfortable and secure, then you can say, hot dog, I feel so safe. Let me go watch one of those movies, okay? And so now while that girl is walking down that hall with great trepidation, and everybody in the audience is saying, oh, don't go there. Oh, don't do that. What we can do instead is remind ourselves this is a movie. They've set this up, and more than likely, the boogeyman that everybody is so afraid of is not behind that door right now. This is a setup just to make you feel afraid. They'll bring the boogeyman out later. But right now, this is just spooky music of a girl walking down the hall. There's no reason to have the spooky music and a girl walking down the hall to feel afraid. And we can tell ourselves that. We can, in fact, watch that scary movie feeling safe, secure, and comfortable because we keep reminding ourselves of the reality is that there is nothing to be afraid of. This is a movie, guys. And still, it will make us afraid because of the habits that we have. And so we can close our eyes and take a deep breath and say, this is just a movie. Let me calm down and everything is going to be all right. So that would be a way of testing yourself. You don't have to actually go to a swamp. You don't have to go there. The real dangerous place you don't need because the artificial danger is what we're really needing to deal with anyway. So now that we've got ourselves to feel safe and secure, we can also in that moment begin to feel comfortable, to recognize, oh, the body is actually comfortable. Now, Westerners, we grow up on furniture. Because of the northern climate and the cold, we don't like cold floors. So we want to sit in a chair. In Thailand, that cold floor is the best place in town. So we want to sit on the floor. They eat on the floor. They do everything on the floor because we're in the tropics and the floors are cool. Okay, so the Westerners think that all meditation, because we're learning meditation from Asians, we've got to sit in the postures that the Asians sit in. There's actually I don't know if you've seen it, Laurent, but there is a posture where the Thais will sit with the legs folded both in the same direction so that both of the feet are pointed backwards, whether it's to the left or to the right. And then you have to fix these muscles on the side so that you don't have to lean over. I never learned to sit in that posture, and the Thais do it all the time because they've done it all the time. And we also have family members who eat their lunch sitting in the full lotus posture. And Westerners say, the full lotus posture? Wow, they must be a really excellent meditator. No, this girl doesn't know anything about meditation. She knows how to eat. Okay, so now we're working on the issue about comfort. We need to get the body comfortable. And the lotus posture and an upright posture would be comfortable for a Buddha or in the old days when nobody had any furniture at all. But now that we've been raised on furniture, maybe furniture is the way to become comfortable. Can you sit and be comfortable in a chair? That's the important thing, is to find comfort. And you have people sitting on the floor who haven't been used to it. After 10 minutes or so, their body begins to ache. It's in an unusual posture. The legs will cramp. Sometimes they'll go to sleep in the sense that the circulation is poor and all of that kind of stuff. And they call that meditation. No, meditation is being comfortable. Why? So that we can relax. It's really hard to relax when you're uncomfortable. So let's get the body safe, secure, and comfortable so that it can relax. This is the right way to practice feeling safe and secure and comfortable, because then the next ingredient comes into play. And that next ingredient is the really important one, and that is satisfaction. And the question is, can you be satisfied with what you have now? I just talked to a student not long ago about, well, I am satisfied, but I want all of these exalted feelings, all the meditator's bliss. And the answer to that is that, yeah, many people want that. And so they say, oh, well, you have to put in so many hours, like maybe 30,000 or maybe 100,000 hours of meditation. And then the karma machine is going to come waltz in, do some Shaktipat and shaking some holy water on you, and then you'll finally feel blissful. That's the imagination, that it's given to us as a reward for a lot of hard work. No, that's not the way to have bliss. The way to have bliss is by practicing being blissful. And how do we practice being blissful? Is by practicing being satisfied with the way things are, that this is good enough. And then that satisfaction will start to grow. And we feel more and more satisfied. And pretty soon, even if you get sick, you can still be satisfied with being sick. It's okay that I'm sick. The day off. I get a day off. I don't have to go anyplace. I'm sick. Hey, guys, I'm so sick I can't do anything you want me to do. And we take that kind of attitude, the positive attitude of, wow, I've got a day off. I don't have to do anything. I can just lay here in bed and enjoy being sick. And so I can get myself safe and secure and comfortable, even if I'm sick. Even if I'm old, I can still feel safe, secure, and comfortable. And when we do that over and over again, we begin to change our attitude, because in fact, we're already winning because we do feel safe, secure, and comfortable. These are winners' attributes. Feeling insecure and uncomfortable and dissatisfied is the method of the loser, of the victim. We started off that way. We were born as victims, and we remain victims our whole lives. Now we're actually going to practice being a winner by feeling safe and secure and comfortable and satisfied. And as we do that and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it over and over again, we begin to change that victim's attitude and the attitude of the winner. And this is the fourth item on the Eightfold Noble Path, Samma Sankappa. And it is tightly connected to confidence, that we have the confidence that I can feel safe, secure, and comfortable and satisfied. I practice it so many times. So now that I practice it so many times that I'm good at feeling safe, secure, comfortable, and satisfied, now I can go to a horror movie and be the champion of that horror movie. They ain't going to make me afraid. I can stand there and watch Jack beat that door down with that axe, knowing it is just a movie and he can't hurt me. That's the way to start to think about it, is that we only want to test ourselves once we're already the champion, once we're already in charge of our lives, and that just proves it one more time that I can handle it. That if I can handle the horror movie and all of the stuff that the horror movie, I mean, they're really experts at making kids and adults feel really terrified. That's what it's all about. There's so many horror movies. In fact, it looks like that almost all the movies wind up being a horror movie because the villain is just so horrible, whatever it is. And so we wind up being in a horror movie all the time. The question is, can we handle that horror movie as if it were merely just a horror movie? So the boss walking down the hall, is this a horror movie or what? No, it's not a horror movie. I'm in charge here. I'm the boss. That's the Sama Sankappa that we build up, but we can't build that up until we already feel safe. Safe and secure is the very first thing that we have to deal with. There will be no comfort and no satisfaction so long as we're afraid. That's the baseline, and so it's the first item that needs to be worked on. And I'm harping on it now because I want the students to understand that this is the goal right from the very beginning, is to let yourself feel right now safe and secure so that you'll know the difference between what ordinary life is, which is filled with dangers, little bit of fear. But now we've gotten ourselves into feeling really, really safe. Wow, I do feel safe. Okay, so now that we know what it is, we can go around and comparing our safety to our unsafety so that we can begin to see our dangers. We can begin to see our anxieties. We can begin to see the dukkha because we've got something to contrast it with. We can see fear because we know no fear. We can see insecurity because we've now understood security. We can recognize dissatisfaction because we've been practicing satisfaction. This is how we practice safe, secure, comfortable, and satisfied over and over and over again. And I know so many meditation students say, wait a minute, that's not enough for me. I want the good stuff out of meditation. Don't tell me that I have to be satisfied with very little. I want a whole lot, and then I'll be satisfied. All right? Well, guess what? What that means is that actually we're practicing being dissatisfied, wanting things that we don't have. If we can be satisfied with the way things are, then those higher things will come on their own, that we've opened the door to them. That if we open the door of satisfaction, then success will come in. And when we've got the door of success open, then um, this eventually the state of being very wealthy, being rich, overflowing. Your life is abundant now. That happens, but not if we start off feeling insecure. We have to get ourselves starting off to feel secure, safe. And guess what? When you do feel safe, you're not who you thought you were because your personality has fear built into it. That's what defines who you are. And now that you're not defined by your fear, you can define who you are all on your own. You can choose who you are in this moment. Who are you? Well, I'm fearless. That's who I am. I'm joyful. That's who I am. That's the way that we see how personality view and fear are wrapped up together. That the fear determines your personality. And when you feel completely unafraid, now let's introduce something because this is something that happens in the English language. The Pali word is abhaya or bhaya. Bhaya is the word for fear, and abhaya means not fear. But in English, we also have a word called fearless. Now, fearless is associated with courage. So we become fearless in the face of danger. All right. And people get medals in the Army for being fearless, being courageous. So the example that I use is that this guy is fearless as he puts on his battle armor going out to battle. He's going to handle that. He's got the winner's attitude. But he's also not really fearless. This is courage. This is something that he adds on to it, a good attitude on top of the fear that's actually there. That if he were truly, truly not afraid of his enemy, then he wouldn't see his enemy. Instead of putting on his battle armor, he would be cooking supper for his friend. That we stop seeing dangers in other people and start seeing that they're not dangerous at all. That in fact, I'm safe. I don't have to act fearless in the face of danger because I invented the danger. And when I see that there is no danger, now instead of being fearless, I can feel safe and secure. So there's a difference between fearlessness and feeling safe. And so by doing that, we recognize, oh, I'm actually going to practice feeling safe, getting ourselves into a safe environment and then talking ourselves into a mental safe environment so that we will really feel safe and secure and comfortable and then satisfied. And as that feeling of success builds, so does the joy. But we have to be satisfied as an in the beginning and become satisfied with very little, satisfied with nothing at all, knowing that my satisfaction is going to grow. It's a skill to be developed. The example would be in music that the guy really wants to learn to play the piano. He goes and he buys piano books. He signs up for piano lessons. He takes his first piano lesson, and then for the whole rest of the week, he plays football. He doesn't practice the piano. If he doesn't practice the piano, then he's not going to get good at the piano, no matter what his intentions with the books and the teachers and all of that. He's got to actually practice the piano, which means here that we actually have to practice feeling safe. We have to practice feeling comfortable. We have to practice feeling satisfied because these are unusual states. This is beautiful music that we don't know how to play because we've been playing the noise of feeling in danger, feeling insecure, uncomfortable, and dissatisfied. That's the music we've been playing. Now we have to practice playing the music of feeling safe, feeling secure, feeling satisfied over and over and over again. And then the mind will wander away. Never mind, come back and we're safe, we're secure, we're comfortable, and we're satisfied. We have to repeat this over and over again until finally that actual feeling of safety and security begins to sink in. And so you can check it. How do I feel right now? Do I feel really safe? Do the guys who have their cameras turned off, do they feel really safe? That's the question of what do we do when we feel unsafe? Because we take it, we want to hide. We want to close things down rather than being open. That when we feel really safe and secure, then become a little bit, maybe not a whole lot, but a little bit what would be called flamboyant or alive. We come alive, that we're hiding, that we're down like this when we feel afraid. But when we feel safe and secure, comfortable, satisfied, and a champion, then you walk around like a champion. So that can be practice. Practice thinking about and feeling like that you're a champion. You're on top of the situation. You may not be a celebrity. We're not talking about a celebrity because, in fact, celebrities are probably full of fear. They don't like the crowd. So we're not a celebrity, but we're a champion instead, a champion of our own mind. And you can walk around that way, knowing I've got this wired. I can handle anything. I can handle the immigration office. I can handle going to the police station. I can handle a horror movie. That's the confidence that we're building. We have to practice when it's easy. Does that answer your question, Lucy?
Yeah. Yeah, perfectly.
Good.
I had the notion that when you would get to some level of attainment, fear would disappear. But now I see the other way around, actually, right? You practice it, feeling secure up to the end,
Mm-hmm.
the whole path.
Right.
You practice, and that practice will lead you to the fearless state eventually. Now I see how
Exactly.
I had a little bit of a magical thinking about that. I was thinking like when I get to some understanding or some level, fear will subside. Actually, no.
No.
You
Eh,
start with what fear you have and you practice on that. And whatever fear comes up, you practice on that, you keep practicing and eventually that practice will make you fearless regardless of the situation, right?
Well, that's because you practice it and it's become a skill for you now. Okay. And you did touch on something that's very important. A lot of people have the idea that, oh, if I just put in the practice, then the results will be there. But they're not actually practicing correctly. They're sitting there in hindrances, waiting for the hindrances to go away, rather than actively removing this hindrance of doubt and insecurity, of danger. We actually have to throw that stuff out over and over and over again. This is an active meditation. We actually have to take the right effort. Have to take the right effort. It's not going to happen simply because we put 100,000 hours into meditation. Doesn't happen that way. That whatever we're calling meditation was probably just sitting in hindrances, waiting for the hindrances to go away. It's like waiting for the occupiers. They've occupied your country, and you're just waiting for them to get. And they're not going to go away. You got to chase them out. You got to reclaim your own territory, your own mental territory. You have to do the work. You have to throw that fear out. You have to keep talking to ourselves. This is okay. We're all right. There's no dangers. There's no worries. And we practice that over and over and over and over again because the default position is back into the instincts. The default position is all of the things that we've learned. The default position is terror, is fear. And if we don't keep pushing, it will go back to its default position. The example that I use that I think is actually quite useful is to imagine that you're at the park with a child and the child wants to be in the swing. And it takes some effort to push the child off, to get it going. But after 4 or 5 pushes, now it's easy. And so we just have to give it just a little push just to keep it going. But if we don't keep pushing, then the swing is going to go back through gravity back to the default position. And now it's going to take a lot of effort to get it swinging again. And so that's the way of looking at it is it's easy so long as we've got it rolling. Let's keep pushing. Let's keep pushing rather than quitting, thinking that, oh, I've got my swing going now. All my meditation is working. I don't have to meditate anymore. And then a week later, I'm in terror again. All right, it's better to practice every day, to keep pushing it every day, to just give it a push. I'm okay. Everything is all right. Got no worries, got no problems. Everything is easy. No danger, no worries. Just keep pushing, keep pushing. And pretty soon, we don't give much time to that terror anymore. We come out of the habit of being terrified and afraid into the feeling of, I've got this wired. I can handle this. Other people may think it's dangerous and terrible, but I've got it. I can handle that. I can handle being called names. That the Buddha talks about that. That in the case of when people would revile him, put him down and use foul language and whatnot, on that account, he would know no fear or dread or dejection of the heart. But also, when people would praise him, on that account of the praise, he would not feel elation of the heart, that he's got control of his elation and dejection of the heart, and that it's not a matter of what other people say. That's pretty advanced because most of us, I mean, if they go around fussing at us about how bad we are, then we begin to feel just the way that they tell us. Why? Because that's our default position. That's what happened when we were kids. Then mommy fussed at us and we feel bad. Now, can adults fuss at you? That in fact the reality is that people are going to complain. That's like Jack busting down that door with the axe. Are you going to be the one who is in the bathroom terrified because somebody's coming after you with complaints? Are you just going to say, oh, this is a movie. This guy's got his own problem. This is not me. He doesn't know who I am. Or the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. When complaints and all of that kind of happen, let those arrows miss us. See those arrows flying through the air, and we can say, oh, you missed me. But most people, what they do is that they'll stand there and say, oh, go ahead, try me. And then we get hit with that arrow, and now that's not good enough. We pull out the arrow only to keep stabbing ourselves over and over again with that same arrow. So one person says one thing, and we wind up repeating it 20,000 times, or maybe 20 times anyway, and feel bad every time. We keep sticking ourselves with the same arrow that we didn't even have to get stuck with in the first place. You're a moving target. Move already. Take the right effort. Get out of the way of thinking that he's talking about you when he's complaining, because he doesn't know who you are. Especially says you are right now a moving target. He thought you were the one he was complaining about, and you just stand right out of the way. That's not me. And so that's the practice. Going back, this is tying it back into the issue that you asked. Do I need to go to a swamp like Bodh Gaya, a really dangerous place? No, you'll find enough danger. Just being out in the world, there's enough danger out there in your mind. Can you avoid that? That's the way of looking at it. Can you handle an ordinary life? Can you handle having to stand in line at the bank or at immigration or at the train station or at the airport? Can you handle that? Because most people get, I mean, if you want to think about it like this, one of the most uptight places in the world is an airport. Everybody is uptight, and almost nobody knows it, but they sure are irritable. I had a friend one time who worked at the airport in a restaurant. All she was just a waitress in a cafe, and she did not like it at the airport. That everybody was uptight, upset, unhappy because the situation calls for it. Everybody's in a strange place, a strange environment. They don't know where they're going. They've got all of this luggage they have to lug around. I mean, it is a situation for bad feelings. And so when students travel, I recommend watch what's going on. Don't join that choir. Be an observer. Look what's going on. You do, in fact, have those dangerous places. Can you avoid the danger? The answer to that is yes, if you're well practiced. Well practiced. To go off and practice in seclusion. Get your music going. Get your song correct. And then you can play that song even at the airport. Maybe even in the swamp. Maybe even in Ukraine. So, this is a talk about fear. And it's important for us to recognize that fear is actually the first thing that needs to be dealt with. And how marvelous that is. If you deal with your fear early, that means you go around fearless much of your life from now on. And that's the primary issue. Our fear is what keeps us in dissatisfaction and dukkha. Oh, I'm afraid, therefore I need a gun. Without a gun, I feel insecure and unsafe. I've got to go get a gun. Guns are difficult to get. And look how much trouble I've got to get it. And then when I bring that gun into the house, I've actually brought something in the house that's dangerous. I thought that I was getting away from danger by getting a gun, and I actually wound up creating danger by having what I thought was going to make me safe. So that's an example of it. When you want something, it's because we feel insecure without it. Can you feel safe and secure all by yourself? Can you let that be your baseline? Practice. Practice. Veda, do you have anything to add to this? You've been off in the corner with your mute and your mic and your camera off. How about you, Kat? Marcel, you guys know what we're talking about here. Do you have anything to add?
No, I just really like to hear it being explained over and over and over, because there's so many things that I'll read once. I'm like, oh, I got that, and then, like, 2 days later, I'm like, oh, I don't have that, and then I like to hear it again and again and again. It's so nice, Even though I'm practicing it, it's just hearing it, like spoken words. What I'm doing is quite helpful. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. DJ, you've been watching your fear for a while, haven't you?
Keeping an eye. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, definitely helpful to come back and to, again, like, work with the foundations, if you will, like, of just coming back to the security, of the safety, of the comfort, really working that in, that leading, of course, the satisfaction as well, and not, again, chasing the far out stuff or whatever. That can arise, that's cool or whatever, but really just being satisfied with that, because, again, if you're satisfied, what more do you want? And then that's where you look, right? That comes up.
Right. That enlightenment is something magical. Nobody really knows what it is, but it's way up there, it's highfalutin.
Yeah.
But the reality is that all that enlightenment it means is that we are safe, secure, comfortable, satisfied, feeling like a champion. That's the enlightenment. When we're lightweight,
Yeah.
fear is heavy. Anger, sadness, that's heavy stuff. When we're enlightened, we're free from that.
Yeah. I really like the kind of dual meaning of it, when we're talking about, like, knowledge and deliverance, right? It's like shining the light, on the dukkha. We understand that, okay, cool, and then drop it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lightening up the load, because that's the whole thing, right? If it's not light, what kind of enlightenment is that, right? If it's heavy, if it's burdensome. But again, when we can see through the fear, when we can understand it, when we can drop it, and we can come back to feeling safe and secure and satisfied, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Right
Right.
now.
You just reminded me of one point that's good to make, and that is that we need to see dukkha. That the children are taught the precepts because they don't have the wisdom to see the damage that they're doing when they break the precepts. So we give them precepts as rules with punishment. So the dukkha is added on. We add that salt, we add that spice to it. But as adults, the reality is that if we can see the dukkha, we don't need any rules. All we need to do is just avoid that dukkha. So we have to see it. Well, the only way to see fear as dukkha is by practicing and getting ourselves into a state of being safe and secure, that we are free from that fear And once we get that established, then when fear comes back, we know it. Oh, that's
Yeah.
fear. Yeah. But if that's our normal state, then we don't even know it. It's kind of subconscious to it. But now that we've got a comparison that we can compare it with, we've got a choice. If you don't see it, you've got no choice. If you can see it now and know that you've got a contrast, this is fear, and I know what fearlessness is, or safety and security. Let me get myself safe again because I prefer being safe and secure. And so that's the dukkha. We have to see it. We can't give it as a set of rules or precepts or anything like that. We have to see it. And the better at seeing dukkha, the better we can avoid it. In fact, seeing the dukkha 5 seconds ahead is good enough. 5 seconds in advance warning is all we need to avoid any feeling. So as I'm getting out of the truck in front of the bank, I remember, hey, I'm going into the bank. That's a dangerous place. Let's manage it well.
Let's have fun with this.
Yeah, we can have fun with anything like that. Begin to see the dangers in advance before they even show up. That the boss is walking down the hall. That's the time to get our mojo. Not after he gets in our cuticle with his fingers out and that scowl on his face. That's not the time to get ready for it. We get ready for it when we know he's coming down the hall. That's the wisdom. Of seeing the dukkha coming in advance so that we can avoid it before it gets here. But we need to practice that.
I got a question about effort in relating to that.
Yes.
Because the past 10 minutes, I've been really like taking deep breaths and like listening to what you say and applying it. But there's a lot of dodging that has to be done. Like, for example, as you said, like it's Sunday and I'm getting uptight because work is coming tomorrow, and like this thought and this feeling and dodging it over and over and over and over again it gets really tiring.
Mm-hmm.
So and
right.
This is tiring. It's keeping me out of the safe and comfortable state because it feels a little bit like work.
It is, yes. Feeling insecure is a lot of work. Feeling safe and secure is easy.
But is it so if you have to dodge the feelings and thoughts of being insecure all the time, doesn't feeling safe?
Well, people develop that habit. I mean, from childhood, many people feel safe, unsafe, insecure most of the time, and they don't even know it. Full of trepidation, and we don't even know it. We don't know how hesitant we are to greet life. And so practicing feeling safe and secure until we actually feel safe and secure, and then when we go back into that state of trepidation, we'll see it. We'll know it. Oh, I've been here before. I can see it now. This is old stuff. Because we've got something to contrast it with. So, congratulations, Marcel. You're being able to see it now. Well, guys, does anybody have any further questions or anything like this? Larry, did you get your answer? Is this going to be something that you can actually apply so that you can get good results? In fact, while I've been talking, I think you've been applying it some. Excellent.
Actually, I might have a question relating to that. So I'm reading a book about emptiness from Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. It's telling that emptiness is the absence of I and mine, of the feeling of I and mine. So,
which is the very one who gets afraid. When you have fear, who's afraid? Me, that's who's afraid. And emptiness is when we don't have any fear, and so there's no self there.
Okay, yeah.
And so these things are all deeply interrelated. Selfishness is fear itself. the self-preservation instinct. We want to preserve ourselves. We have fear. And so we are not empty.
Yeah, makes sense.
But when we are safe and secure, then who is insecure? Not me. There's no me here much. And so everything kind of winds up being back to its real normal state, or real natural state, which is empty. Nothing has any meaning at all. And that's what Bhikkhu Buddhadasa is getting at, is that we create meaning when in fact there's really no meaning there. And who creates the meaning is the me who sees fear. And when there is no fear, then we don't create anything. And so things are left just kind of as they are, empty enough. Nothing means anything except what you make of it. And if we don't make much of anything, then there's really not much there.
Mhm.
An
So
example of that, yeah. So an example of that is that in that horror movie, when Jack is busting in, if we become afraid, that means that we have become the object of his terror. We are now the wipe in that bathroom. But if we can draw back and say, this is just a movie, I am not in that movie. I am not in that bathroom. I am not in danger. This is just a movie. Then in fact it's empty. That bathroom is empty now because I'm not there. I've withdrawn my mind from that bathroom. That bathroom is a dangerous place and I'm not in there. I'm sitting here in the movie theater. And that bathroom is empty. And that's the kind of a way that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa is talking about it, is that everything is empty. The only thing that's really there is what we've made of it. So that's what you can get out of that his book. Are you reading The Heartwood from the Bow Tree? Is that what it is, or is it?
yes, that
Yeah.
one, yeah.
That's a heavy duty one.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. Yeah, very interesting.
All right, guys. Well, why don't we finish off now? This has been quite a fearless talk that we've had today. Does anybody have any parting words? Anything to finish off with?
Thank you very much, Ajahn. Great seeing
You
you.
guys.
Thank you.
All righty.
Really nice to
Thanks for
see
the
you.
nice talk.
May you all be fearless. May you all feel safe, secure, comfortable, and happy, at least right now.
Bye.
I really love these talks. Thanks. Bye.
Good. Bye-bye, friends. We'll see you later.
Bye, guys.